So in the following video I will be testing my A-level project, starting with the very first test, which is a game win run through. So just very simple to make sure everything starts up, loads, goes through everything it should. Starts off, loads up your opening screen as shown in the design section. You hit quit, closes everything down. If you hit game start, loads into perfect game. Another will restart by respawning the player. Movement works as expected. So does contact with a bullet, as will be shown later. Clicks once a bullet is in the air will no longer result in another bullet being formed. As soon as the first is disposed of by hitting a player or wall, then another will be able to fire. So for the game win run through, as long as I can do that, so stops the player being moved for a second while the bullet ends, then you can move the player, but there is no enemy. Walk away will close the program, whereas respawn, as shown on either of these, will allow the player to spawn another enemy and the game will start again. If the enemy is killed by the player, then the enemy will respawn at its starting position. Same with the player being killed by the enemy, will respawn in the player's starting position of 50-50, as shown here. That's the first test done. Second test is dying through both contact with a enemy fired bullet and the enemy itself. So by bullet, as you can see, spawns the player back where it should after hitting another, and contact is fairly difficult to show. There we go. Also eliminates the player. Only issue with this is there is no grace timer. So if that happens, the player is stuck into an infinite loop. But just to show again that the bullet will kill the player immediately and respawn. And if I can just show the contact again to prove my point of the loop. It's relatively difficult to show. And if he spawns there. Easiest way to show it is if I get the enemy to respawn just around where my player is now. Leave it here. As has been shown, this is a very unlikely case, but there we go. So I believe it spawned here. There you go. So immediate contact will kill the player. And if that contact is made where the player spawns, which I won't be able to show due to the random movement, the player would not then be able to move. So that's tests 2 through 3. Test 4, very simple, showing that the walls are all solid. Oh, touch me there. So showing that all walls are solid. There we go, slightly easier map to show. So both top and bottom walls, as you can see, will simply repel the player as soon as they hit the wall. How this works is by pushing the player back to the space it's just moved from. Whichever direction it hits the wall from, it will be pushed in the other direction. Easiest way to do this, if I can get rid of the enemy for just 2 seconds. Let me show you slightly easier. As you can see here, found an issue of the walls not generating correctly. At this stage, the player can move through here, as a wall obviously isn't generating to the correct proportions. It's the first time I've found that, and I'll have a look at that as soon as I've recorded the video, and we'll probably add a bit in afterwards to if I can find a solution to the issue. So then the next test is an improper command, so trying to move a player when there isn't a player to move, and the same to be said with firing. So hitting the WASD keys to try and move a player before it exists, as well as when it doesn't exist in this scenario, none of which allow me to fire. Firing, on the other hand, when there's not a player on the board, results in an error. This can be fixed simply with not player is nothing. So by adding this onto each of the movement, that won't work in all cases. I'd have to put that on each of the if statements relating to it. But now, there we go. Now, due to there not being a player, the bullet will originate from 0, 0. As there's not actually a player for it to originate at the minute. Which again can be fixed by putting if player is nothing at the beginning of the fire loop. That will mean that if the player is nothing, then it won't fire. If I try and fire whilst on this screen, it does exactly the same because it doesn't believe there's anything of a bullet. Again, fixed with the same if the same not is statement, that would fix that issue as well. That would have to be placed on each and every one of the times where it's referenced outside of the fire subroutine. And the last test is to see what happens if the game is drawn. So for this, I'm going to have to make sure that both the player and enemy are out of the game at the same time. So you're going to have to do that, which isn't that easy to show. There we go. So should hit another. So an issue popping up here is as I click play another when both players are dead, the first one will only spawn at the enemy, and then for each death you have to click another again to be able to spawn the player. And I might be able to show the earlier test of contact if it comes back this way. No, but so they are all the tests done for now. Yeah, thank you. So just as a follow-up to the previous video, with the issue where the walls wouldn't form properly and the player or enemy would be able to escape through the gap between PA3 and PA4 as shown on the screen at the minute. Figured out what the issue with that is. When in orientation at the minute, you'll never find the issue. Because to find and create the length of the wall, you take the x position of PA4 and PA3 and you manipulate those to find the distance between them. However, as soon as it's orientated like this, of course in this respect PA6 would be known as PA1, PA1 would be known as PA2, etc, etc. But the gap between what's shown on screen as PA2 and PA3 won't work, because instead of looking at PA3 and PA4, you're now looking at PA2 and PA3 with how the variables are called. The way to change that you would have to check and create an if statement, quite a few of them, to find out whether the 3 and 4 had a different, the same with a different x or y. So we're going to try and fix that now. And if there's a continuation to the video, then I'll find a fix for it. But yeah, so that's why that was having the issue it was.